Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast with Michael Becker and Paul Peebles. During this program, you will hear interviews with real-life successful investors who will share their stories and provide useful advice on how to acquire, finance, and operate apartment complexes. Now, here they are, Michael Becker and Paul Peebles.
Welcome to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Peebles, National Underwriter for Old Capital. And joining me typically would be the mayor, the governor of the great state of real estate here in Texas, Mr. Michael Becker, but unfortunately he is on another due diligence assignment. So again, you have me to visit with you today on the Old Capital Podcast. This is kind of a special edition of the Old Capital Podcast. Today we're going to do something a little different. We're recording a video cast. And I'm excited because today we're going to talk about infancy, not infancy of a baby or a puppy, but infancy of artificial intelligence in commercial real estate underwriting. Artificial intelligence is still very young in our industry. It's early, it's evolving, and like any new technology, we're all trying to figure out what it means and how it works and how it can make us make better decisions. But before we dive into AI, let's start with some basic definitions. What exactly is underwriting in commercial real estate? Underwriting is critical risk assessment processes where lenders or investors analyze a borrower's creditworthiness and the property's value to determine whether a loan or investment is secure. It processes lots of information that continues to be evolving, like income, creditworthiness, liquidity, management experience, debt levels, debt-to-income ratios, appraisals, current rent rolls, and historical financial reporting. All of that data is analyzed before a lender decides to make a loan or before an investor decides to make an investment. At its core, underwriting is really about evaluating risk. And the truth is, we evaluate risk every day of our lives. Think about it. What time do you wake up in the morning? If you wake up too early, you know you're probably going to be tired later in the day. Or think about your car. If you've been driving on the same tires for years and haven't checked them recently, you know that there's a chance you could end up with a flat tire on the side of the road. Every decision comes down to a simple question. What information do I have today that allows me to make a decision with the lowest possible risk? Some people call that prudent risk. Prudent risk is the practice of taking calculated and thoughtful, sensible risks, not reckless ones, with the goal of achieving a positive outcome while minimizing the potential harm. Historically, in real estate investing, we didn't always have access to every piece of information that we wanted. So investors relied upon two things. First, their gut, which I would call a form of prudent decision-making. Second, their experience, what they've seen in past cycles, past deals, and past markets. But today we're entering a new era. Today we have a new tool called artificial intelligence. And while it's still in its infancy, AI has the potential to help investors gather more information, analyze more variables, and ultimately making better, more informed decisions with lower risk. So in today's podcast, we're going to explore exactly how that's happening. We're joined by two professionals who are actively implementing artificial intelligence in the real estate underwriting process, using it to help investors make smarter investment decisions. They're going to share what they're seeing on the front lines and how AI can be used when underwriting a real estate transaction on behalf of investors. I recently had the opportunity to hear both of these gentlemen speak while I was in Silicon Valley discussing the future of AI in real estate. Their insights were fascinating, and I immediately thought of your ears, our audience, that needed to hear their perspective. So today we're going to talk a little bit about AI, where it might be headed, how investors can begin to think about using it in their underwriting process. And so let's welcome Tony Lin with Link Multifamily and Eddie, who works in Silicon Valley with big tech. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Paul. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Eddie. Tony, you're an operator of multifamily properties. Eddie is an investor, but he's on the cutting edge of AI. And so what I like to do is really get Eddie's perspective, really of the general state of AI. Maybe you can kind of walk us through the big picture, where it's come from, where it is today, where it's going to, and actually, how the hell does it work?
This is a really exciting topic, something that I really love as a kid. I've always dreamed of the day that AI would take flight and we'd see it really come into fruition in our lives. Today, to see where it is and how fast it's evolving since I'd say the modern eras, since 2017, is just really fascinating to me. In 2017, a really interesting paper came out. The title was Attention is All You Need. And this was like the seminal paper. And this was when AI was able to first talk to us intelligently. And it wasn't just programmed to have responses like if you say hello, it'll say hello back, programming it to respond in a certain way. It really understood the human language and was able to respond back. And this was done through this thing called next token prediction. It was so simple, but so complex. But today we're so much past that. Today back then we called it like autocomplete. It was auto-completing language. It just kind of predicted what was going to be said and would give you a intelligible response to something that you're talking with it about. This is kind of like an advanced chatbot. And 2018, 2019, 2020, we're all like amazed at this technology. But today it's evolving even faster than we ever imagined. And so today we've got tools, advanced tool usage. And one of the things that I'm working on, we've got things like deep research. It knows how to deeply do those Google searches for you to look at all the wealth of information out there. It's not just trained on some data that existed 5 years ago. It has the intelligence to go and look up research reports, look up economic reports, jobs reports, things that various experts are putting out there, and to synthesize all of this information and come out with and give you some intelligible, understandable answer that you can then have a conversation with that AI. And so that's really incredible. The state today is just where we are advancing AI at a clips that is unimaginable.
What's the impact on the economy? I mean, we're already starting to see a little bit of it. What's the predictions about what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is one that my colleagues and I talk about a lot. And we like to have our lunchtime conversation is what are we going to do in our AI retirement? But there's this quote that I like to bring up, which is when Mark Twain famously said, "The reports of my death are greatly exaggerated." I think a lot of people think AI is going to take over all of our jobs. And I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think there's a lot of in the short term, I think there's a lot of innovation that's happening and needs to happen. And there's so much work to be done to get to that future that we're all kind of looking towards and looking forward to. I think that there's a lot of jobs that are in the sort of transactional space, that the kind of things that we don't like to do, the kind of menial tasks on the computer that you're analyzing, you're comparing things, and you're doing research reports and the writing, the massive amounts of writing and analyzing that needs to be done. Those kinds of jobs, I think what's going to happen is we're finding that those jobs are the kinds of things that AI is really, really good at. And so we're going to find these kinds of things to be less relevant going forward. But I think that there are things that will never change, that will always be necessary. And so things that will never be replaced by AI is things like the expert eye, the wisdom of experience. And a prudent advice to anyone who's thinking about their career, I think, is relationship-based businesses that are based on trust. These are going to be even more important. These are going to be even more impactful because if AI can do all the analysis in the future, do all of the underwriting a better way for folks, then everyone's kind of on a level playing field in terms of the information that's available to them. What becomes even more important is who are you as a person? Are you trustworthy? And I know that in this business, in the multifamily business, I know that I've learned a lot from Tony. I've learned a lot from you, Paul, that how important these relationship-based businesses are, that your reputation is in this business. And I think that's even going to be more so true in the coming years.
You talk about AI, but again, I don't really understand how it works. I've heard of companies like NVIDIA and ChatGPT, and I've heard maybe Gemini. I've heard of some of these other companies out there. Which one's the best? I mean, you kind of give me what is there? Are they all in different segments? I mean, I know NVIDIA makes chips and I know Claude does this, does that, but can you kind of, for an old guy, can you kind of break it down like you're talking to your father about what the hell you do?
When it comes to AI, I think we're all old guys because everything is so nascent, everything's so new. But that's a really good question. I think in the AI space, there's hardware and then there's the software. And folks like NVIDIA are building the hardware that's necessary. The silicon manufacturers like TSMC, Samsung, Apple is in that silicon space, Google's in the silicon space. All these companies, they're trying to build better and better, more capable chips. We need those chips in our cars to do self-driving. We need those chips in our computers. And now we're getting to a space where we all need these, there's a lot of these personal computer things that will handle tasks for you. This is the all the rage in the last I swear last 2-3 weeks is the yes, exactly. Claudebot and Perplexity is coming out with the Perplexity computer, and Apple Mac Minis are selling off the shelf because all these people want to have their personal little agent, Jarvis. And they're coming and they're building them so that they can handle tasks for you. So when you get an email, simple thing is responding to an email the way that you would respond to that email. And if it feels like it can't respond to that email, then escalating to you like a true assistant and saying, hey, actually, this is you know what, Eddie, you need to take a look at. This is a really important one from Paul. And so having this assistant that maybe is out there every morning checking flights for you to make sure that you get the best prices on flights, or checking all the real estate companies out there, all the brokers' sites to see if there's anything interesting, new properties, new OMs that have been posted, taking those OMs, doing some analysis on those, taking a look at additional reports and doing deep research from the markets and combining it all, synthesizing it, and giving you something that's chewable for you. This kind of era of computing, of AI, is really changing the way that we're starting to think about our daily lives. There's the hardware guys, and then there's the software guys. They're the software guys like Claude. Claude is doing an amazing job with building. Claude Code is something that developers out there are taking advantage of because it's so good at writing code. Just a few years ago, we said, engineers, this is a complex task. It's something that's worth paying a lot of money for. If you want to build a website, if you want to build a company, you got paid top dollar for top engineers. And I want to argue that's still true today. I'm an engineer. I want to get paid top dollar. But the fact is that AI can do it better and better every day. That kind of thing exists. And there's companies that are pushing towards specific AI that can do a coding. That's maybe one of the top things right now. But soon we'll have AI that is geared towards specific audiences, specific industries. And I think not too long from now, we'll definitely see a lot more offerings in the real estate space for real estate investors, for real estate operators. And I think first mover advantage here is going to be critical for people to be able to take a look at and take advantage of this. And if you're able to take advantage before others are, I think you'll be in a good space.
Sounds good. So am I going to be Tony Stark with Jarvis in the future, or is Jarvis and Tony Stark already here?
Well, we've got Tony Lynn here. So Tony Stark with Jarvis. Tony uses, and the way that I've seen Tony use AI in his underwriting is incredible. I've seen bits and pieces of it, and he's continually shared a little bit more and more. And even I'm amazed at the level of sophistication that today's AI can do in the real estate space.
That's great. So let's turn it over to Tony Stark, Lynn, or better known as just Tony Lynn with Linfinity and Link Multifamily. So Tony is from Silicon Valley. He operates multifamily properties. He's an educator too. And him and I and Eddie were all together. And Tony was just kind of laying out of what the future is for his investors and kind of shared that with me. And so, Tony, I'm going to kind of let you run the show. If you want to get on and show us a little bit about what your slides are, but kind of give us a little bit of a background on you, Tony, first.
First of all, I've known Paul forever. And just like what Eddie says, the power of relationship is probably one of the last thing that probably will also never be able to be replicated. Once again, thanks for having us and allowing us to share a little bit about our view of where we're headed and how we can really leverage it. My background is in tech. I was in software for about 23 years, right? And during this time, I always thought about like making sure I have other sources of income because coders get old and you can't do this forever. But now we can have AI help us. But so anyways, I met Paul, wow, way back in 2015, 2016. So it's been 10 years, right? And all along the way with the engineering mindset, I'm always thinking of how to make our process operations more efficient with or without AI. But it all comes down to arming yourself with more tools. And then you bring that to the relationship table, right? These are utilities and tools that bolster your case for better execution, for better ability to close a deal and run it well for the investors that you're serving, right? So I'm super excited. I retired from tech about 4 years ago to focus full time on real estate. But I have this constant itch, especially when AI came out, that of all the things that we can now optimize and make our operations even better, right? In turn, it also frees up our time so that we're better able to, because for somebody who's really hands-on, you could literally spend 40, 60 hours a week looking at your properties, or you can start to automate some of that and run it a lot better. I think coming into this, what I realize is in today's AI, it's such a big realm, right? I mean, we can categorize it into three levels, I would say. The first level is what we're all familiar with, ChatGPT. It's a general purpose chatbot. It's a good place to ask general questions, get very quick answers, and then even set up basic framework for answering emails, for if you had to do letters to each other. So I think that's the first tranche of what we're able to interact with, right? And then beyond that, we're starting to get into the world of what we call generative AI. So generative AI, we're now able to create all these videos, these images, marketing materials, slides. We had a GP retreat a couple months ago, and then I gave a short outline, and boom, it created the slides in like 3 minutes. It's amazing, right? So I used to fiddle with slides for like a good hour or two and now, and that makes us more efficient. And then beyond that, you start to hear terms like agentic AI, basically having these AI servants or that basically go and do things on your behalf. It's like having multiple assistants working on things for you, right? So that roughly translates to having VAs in Philippines or somewhere that help you to do things that will require a human interaction, right? Like looking at your credit card receipts and mapping them to some expense, right? Or helping you to answer Airbnb clients' questions, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's a lot of different level of complexity, and the ability that we can do things is a lot more and more and more and more. Okay. However, what I kind of see is most of us, including myself and my parents, are in love with ChatGPT. Oh, I just love chatting with it all day, right? And on the other end of a spectrum, you have people like Eddie, who is really doing like groundbreaking stuff, right? In the middle is a vast emptiness of nobody really know how to implement those. A lot of small, medium business, they want to implement AI, they don't really know how to or where to start, right? So I'm hoping that through what we're learning about AI, we can start to bridge that gap, right? So what I like to showcase is just very rudimentary, like a little bit about what I do every day to save a little bit of my time. I mean, there's much more complicated things, but I think from a real estate point of view, you can already start it to help you to generate the skeletons of your underwriting. It's not going to be perfect. You need to analyze it, you need to tweak it, but it can really quickly generate for you. It can analyze things, the long financial data, to find irregularities, right? That used to take you a long time looking line by line to find. On the operations side, it can create marketing programs for you. It can create a social post, right? You can create prompts where I like to do Instagram post about my property, right? And then it can create all those, the generative AI can create all those media, all those posters, all the things and post them for you, right? These are all extremely valuable that you used to have to hire outside companies for that you can now, AI can help you too. These are just some of the things. I think we're coming to a very exciting time. There's a real market for people who can help the small, medium business learn how to do these things, right? We're not big tech. We don't have like teams of people to help us to do this. But what I really look forward to is maybe setting up a community where we can share ideas about like, hey, this is the prompt I used to did this. This is how I set up to help me look through my expenses to figure out like, hey, we're overpaying for a certain thing. Like Paul says, we're just at the infancy of what we can do. But in the end, nothing replaces person-to-person relationship.
You got me excited, Tony. Show me what you mean.
All right, so I'll just show you a few examples. Of course, just understand that we do more complicated stuff than this, but this is just a little glimpse of the things that we do. So a little bit about us. I run a mentorship program called Infinity Campus. It's really designed to help people understand things from more of a technical side, how to be more conservative in underwriting, and how to really look at things realistically. You can, get to know us more on infinitycampus.com. So typically when we do underwriting, we're very used to looking at these type of spreadsheets, right? A rent roll, and then if you look at an actual rent roll, it's this thing with so many line items. And then what we like to do here is, oh, we want to look at, okay, for a certain unit type, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, how many are those? What is the maximum rent? What is the lowest rent? To try to figure out how much premium are they charging, right? So there's a bunch of data that we like to find out that we used to have to take this, sort it by this column, by that column, etc. And if you're looking at a big property, let's say 150, 300 units, it becomes almost impossible to get a real data out of that. However, you can now feed the document into an AI agent like Claude. And then now you can just start asking questions once you have loaded it. One of the things I like to ask is a lot of times when people sell their properties, they load them up with new tenants. And if they have a pulse, they'll take them in, just trying to boost occupancy. So I like to evaluate that risk, right? So you can say, looking at the rent roll, what percentage of people moved in the property in the last 3 months? I used to go through and then start counting them. I look through the move-in date, but now, a few seconds, you get that, right? Oh, okay. Well, 12% of the people move in the past 3 months. It's not that bad. And then you can say, you can start to formulate more and more complex questions like, okay, for A1 units, what is the delta between the renovated and unrenovated units, right? So I can find you that. And then you can start to ask it to build a little bit more and more complex table. So this is a pretty good template to use. Show me a list of units, group by the unit type, then list the numbers of units of that type, square feet, lowest rent, highest rent, average rent, median rent, and then finally the average per square feet. And then very quickly it spits out this table, right? So while in most offering memorandums, the brokers will provide that information, but a lot of times you want to get the actual latest information from the rent roll, the real rent roll, right? And this allows you to get that information. They'll group it for you, all this kind of stuff. And then they'll also do a little analysis and tell you little details. So it actually noticed that, hey, the renovated A1R units actually has a good premium. And then if the AI figured out on its own that the R must mean that it's renovated, and then you're able to get basically like a 24 cents a square feet premium between the unrenovated and renovated ones.
So it discovered that.
Yeah.
And gave that to you as an answer. Wow.
Right.
What's amazing about this is that in yesteryear, we used to think of ourselves as, oh, I'm a quant guy, or I'm not a quant guy. I'm good at math, or I'm not good at math. This levels the playing field. You don't have to be good at math. You don't have to be good with spreadsheets or numbers or doing analysis. You ask the critical question to the AI, it is doing that for you. And now you are just as equipped, empowered, capable as the best of them. So I find that fascinating.
Yeah. So using this, it's really quite easy for you to create this table and look at what is the difference in rent, right? So between renovated versus unrenovated. And then you can probably start to ignore some of the lowest rent because it probably represents somebody who lived there in a long time. But this gives you some good data points. And then I ask more information. Show me information on what percent of unit is vacant and how long they have been in vacant, right? And what's a loss to lease. So you're able to pull so much data using the same amount of file. And then once you start asking it to look at the loss to lease, it starts even telling you, hey, the 3-bedroom C1 units, wow, 28% of them have the highest loss to lease. It's hard to move the large units, right? And then this is a interesting thing that I just keep asking, it's like, oh, just tell me what you find interesting. So AI helps you because it looks at things so quickly and it'll notice things that you may not notice. I mean, a lot of us, our eyes glaze over when we start looking at these type of numbers, right? How do you catch anomalies when there's so many numbers being thrown at you? Well, AI can help you to do that.
Look at that, where it says there's 47 leases are going to expire in the next 90 days.
Yeah, right. Think about how long it would take you for you to figure that out on your own, reading over 300 rent roll entries. So this is what I think is really powerful, right? It helps you to underwrite and understand certain things to watch out for. Okay.
This is really amazing, Tony.
Yeah. So 9 units have expired leases, so they're probably on month to month, but you might also want to count that as a risk of future vacancy, et cetera, et cetera. You can also have it automate to do things like that. So on the operation side, for example, I'm asking which tenants are moving out in 2 months. Okay. If there's a lot of people moving out, then draft a renewal letter offering them a flat rent, no increase. I want to hold on to the people. If there's not many people moving out, then draft renewal letters offering $25 increases. So then it can literally, so it's, 20 expiring May, so we'll go with a flat rent renewal letters, right? So, and boom, your office manager could do this and help them out in assessing your future lease expiration exposure and manage it that way. Okay. And then sometimes I have fun. It's like, you gotta write me a poem or write me a haiku and all that kind of stuff. But what I found is ChatGPT can be very funny, but Claude is not. It's more serious. Another tool that I like to use is something called Notebook LM by Google. So Notebook LM is what we call a RAG. Okay, so it's a retrieval augmented system. Basically, you can point it at a folder full of financial data, right? So in this case, I pointed at this a really old property, but you basically throw everything. It's like, here's an OM, here is the T12 financials, here's the rent roll, here is the box score, all this kind of stuff. You just give it everything. It'll read the whole thing, and then it will actually store the information in a very efficient manner for you to ask questions later on. So where Claude over here, you give it a file and it actually runs a script to grab the information for every time you ask a question. Notebook LM stores it, and then it's already in a way sorted, it's ready to go, and then it can answer a lot of your questions much faster. And Notebook LM is fun. Okay, and this is how I use it. So when I used to go to work, I have an hour and a half commute each way, right? So what I do is in the morning, I look at what new deals have come out, find one that's interesting, download the financials, just load it into Notebook LM, and then just have it analyze it, right? And then what you can ask it to generate is you can ask it to generate a podcast, and you can listen to it.
Individual decisions could add up to major financial impacts.
Right. So let's start with that big picture. Fleetwood generated over $2 million in operating income in the past year alone.
That's impressive. And when we dig in.
So what it does is it actually creates a AI audio podcast using 2 virtual audios, and they chat with each other on all the information that's within here, right? So on your drive to work, you can listen to it. It's analyzed it for you, and then 11 minutes, you can get a whole recap of what this deal is like. right? It's extremely powerful. It's able to generate a briefing document as well. And this basically has already analyzed all the T12 information. It summarizes everything for you, what percent of bedrooms.
Tony, can you turn this back on? Can you share your screen one more time again?
How's that?
Perfect.
Okay. So it generates everything, including you can say like, well, if I were to renovate this, how would you go about it? Okay. So
Installing property-wide Wi-Fi. In 2024, that's not a luxury anymore. It's a utility.
So it can generate a report for that. It creates a investment memorandums like it would recommend this is how you would go and increase the NOI to this.
It gives you a map. Starts giving you a map.
Yeah. It even looks at the loan quotes that you got and then kind of go over like, yeah, this is probably what you want to do for your loan and all that kind of stuff. It's a quick analysis. You definitely want to talk to Paul to make sure you're making the best decision, but you get such a quick overlay. Like, for example, option number 5 is a recommended financing path. So it's the highest proceed with the lowest rate, so these are things that we make decisions after we review the information, but it just gives you a summary so much quicker. And I use this for both new properties I'm looking at, as well as when people offer me an investment to look into, right? Well, most LPs, they don't have time to look at all these documents and figure out exactly what it is, right? I would recommend the LPs load it into Notebook LM, have it run analysis for you, and just listen to the podcast or read the brief. It would have done the basic analysis. And same thing over here. You can ask any information and it'll say the same thing, right? So, for example, yeah, same thing. What percentage people move out in the last 3 months? And then what it does is looking up the database and then it'll come back with an answer.
Yeah, it's looking at stuff that's only in that file itself. So it doesn't leave that file. It just focuses the search within the file itself. And then Eddie, how do you get into sample notebook LM analysis? Is that something that everybody has access to?
So Notebook LM is a service provided by Google. It's available to everyone. You get a clean slate and you can upload files that are relevant to you, what you're trying to study. A lot of students use this for studying chemistry or physics or something like that, whatever subject. An investor might create one notebook per investment or potential investment that you're looking at. And so upload all the T12s, the rent rolls, all the things that the OM, all the information that you want to analyze for that particular property. And then, like Tony did here, you might create multiple podcasts that sort of look at the property from different angles. Whether something you could flip, or is this something that you have an investment thesis and you can feed that thesis to Notebook LM and it will talk about it. It will analyze it or think about it from the lens that you wanted to think about. So yeah, it's available to everyone. And one concern before, when you mentioned sort of it only looks at the information that you give it, that's an important point. I know that the general public, we've seen from the early days of ChatGPT, we've seen news and stories of hallucination and how much AI hallucinates. But if you haven't been on the sort of cutting edge of AI these days, maybe you still think, oh, there's a lot of hallucination going on. And there is some. But in a situation like this, where you're uploading specific files to Notebook LM, like Tony mentioned, it is indexing that information. It uses something called a vector database, and it understands the information that it's indexing. It's quickly able to pull from there, as opposed to this idea that AI is hallucinating. AI hallucinations were a big problem, I would say 5, 6, 7 years ago. Today, when you're using something like Notebook LM, it's far less of a concern.
Yeah, I mentioned in the beginning, Notebook LM is something we call a RAG. And one different thing about this RAG is when you ask it a question, the data it's pulling from is only from the data set you feed it. Whereas in a general ChatGPT chat, it is pulling from the data, the entire internet data it was trained with. There could be misinformation. There could be so much information that it's not tracked or verify very cleanly, all that kind of stuff, right? But when you're asking it to only focus on this small subset, it becomes much safer. Okay, I'll show you a couple more. So this is like, in fact, this is for one of the new deals that we're looking at. I just gave it rent roll and just asked them. It's like, do you see anything weird? Okay, and this is what I found. It's like, hey, how come this person's paying almost nothing? Just moved in, but scheduled charges of just $88, right? And then these two units have similar names for the people. This one has a huge balance, and another unit also have the same balance. So what's going on here, right? You might want to get clarification to see if the data is trustworthy and all that kind of stuff,
That's
right?
amazing.
So here's another one that I can show you with you guys. This is something else that I just done, right? So when we send out K1s to our investors, we always want to make sure that what the accountant has filed is correct with what we have on file. So basically what I've done here is I pulled our investors' latest data from the CRM and just gave it all the K1s and say, go check our investors' information about against what is in the K1 and see if you find anything mismatching, right? So this used to take me a couple of hours, right? Going line by line, checking everybody's addresses, tax ID. Now, within 2 to 3 minutes, it's done. And then it gives you a report of all the mismatches that it has found and things to look at.
Does it have to be an Excel report that's submitted in, or can you submit it in like on a PDF?
A PDF is fine. It's fully capable of reading tables from a PDF. So little things like this, I mean, we're not talking about building a big old pipeline or multi-agent, multimodal stuff. This is just simple stuff that anybody can do. You load them to Claude or any agent, any LM that you prefer, they can do this, right? I actually highly encourage. I started down this path by just saying, I'm thinking of doing this. Okay, I need to do this, but I'm not sure if you can help me. So I want to check the K1s. What do you think I should do? And then it literally just said, oh, I can take care of that. I think I should be able to do that. Why don't you just give me the files? I'll give it a try, right? So my suggestion is don't be afraid to try to ask AI about what it can do. It might be able to do it for you.
That's a good point. AI is its own user manual. Technology in the yesteryear used to be, I don't know how to use this thing. It's too advanced. I need to read about how to use it. Where's the user manual? But today with AI, literally you ask the AI itself, hey, how do I use this for this purpose? And it will give you step-by-step instruction, and it learns how you communicate. So if you're not very technical, it'll slow it down. It'll make it a little bit easier for you to consume. And if you are very technical and you start asking more technical questions, it will answer at the level that you're capable of understanding. So I find that to be, from a user standpoint, highly user friendly in that way.
Tony, what else?
Yeah. And this is something that one of my partner wrote, William, wrote. This is how we do underwriting nowadays, right? It used to be when we do underwriting, it takes half an hour just to fill the things out. And you have to match what expense goes where, all that kind of stuff, and you have assumptions. But now this is the new steps that we do. There is a company called Cashflow Portal, which is actually has an AI underwriting tool. It's really great. It sucks in the T12 and the rent roll you give it, and it creates a 5-year pro forma with certain assumptions, and then you can adjust it and do all that kind of stuff, right? The way we use it is we have Cashflow Portal generate an underwriting template. And then we ask Claude or any other LM to also create an underwriting itself. And then we ask Claude to compare the Cashflow Portal underwriting against Claude's own underwriting and see, hey, what difference do you see? Because maybe that catches something that one model or another did not catch, right? And then just have it verify against each other. After that, well, most GPs have an underwriting template that they're familiar with, right? It could be Michael Blanc's, it could be whoever, right? Maybe you don't want to use a web-based template. You want to use your own Excel spreadsheet, right? You can then tell Claude to say, okay, using the information from Casual Portal or from Claude, please fill in the spreadsheet for me. And it's able to do that. What used to take us will used to take us even up to half an hour to an hour of filling things in. You can do that in a few minutes. It can populate the things for you, and then you can proceed to play with the numbers and come up with 100% IRR or something like that. But yeah, that's how it really starts you. And you can run the underwriting with different models and see how they compare with each other. But we set up in such a way that when we have Claude underwrite, we ask it to still prompt us for questions. So say, hey, what is your assumption for annual rent growth? What is your assumption for expense growth? What is your assumption for exit cap rate, etc. Right? So you can save your assumptions in the template. And, so for example, you can say, please underwrite the deal using these assumptions. What is the purchase price? What is the loan? Or you can feed it the loan quote that you got, and then it would underwrite the whole thing for you. It's making us faster and faster and being able to look at more deals. There could be some deals that we said, we don't take a closer look at, and it could have been a good deal because we just didn't have the time. But now we're able to process more. And then the next logical thing for you to do is, create an agent that reads my Google email, sees a deal come in, go to the deal room and download all the financial data, and then go analyze it. And then at end of the day, give me a list of deals that's worth a deeper analysis on.
Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Right. You could definitely take it much further.
I'm actually very curious because, Tony, you mentioned you can compare and align on step 3, this AI versus another AI. And so for all the listeners out there, I'm very curious. If you start doing this, I'm curious to know whether you find Claude Opus to be the best, or if you find OpenAI's 5.2 to be the best in terms of underwriting, because this is not a benchmark that's been put out there thus far. A lot of these companies are focused on other tasks like coding. And so there's a coding arena benchmarking that's done. There's other kinds of benchmarks, but this might be the first time anyone's kind of put out a challenge out there to benchmark against underwriting in real estate. So I'd love to see that from listeners.
Yeah. And then finally, I think we're actually thinking of starting to implement on our properties are basically AI tools for our own office manager. So imagine, like, what does your office manager do all day? They answer questions about what is the rent, any specials, right? How about, like, can I schedule a tour? Or, you could have tenants coming in and say, how much do I owe? Really generic problems, okay, questions, right? So you can offload their work by having an AI chatbot that handles this. But what is missing in the AI chatbot? The intimacy of voice, somebody talking to them. In today's world, it is really easy for us to set up like a notebook LM RAG that can talk to you. You can ask it questions using voice. If we order a pizza and the person on the other end taking the order has no idea it's an AI agent, you could definitely create this service where people still feel like they feel like they're talking to a human, they feel that closeness, but very mundane work can be offloaded to have to AI agents to be done. I see a lot of possibilities even on the operations side in the future.
That's amazing. What else are we missing? And, we talked a little bit about what it was in the past and where it is today. What's going to blow my mind in 5 years?
What's going to blow your mind in 5 years that's different from today is beyond the digital assistant or the digital agent that's going to help you, is in 5 years' time, we'll have the physical agents that help you. And so when you think about the physical agents, today we've got Tesla is trying to get into that space with the Optimus robots. And there's Boston Dynamics has been in this space building robots. Cars, self-driving cars, we can think of them as physical agents that are doing physical tasks for us. And there's a plethora of other companies that are trying to get into the space, building robots that are going to handle a lot of things for us. And the price tag that people are putting on it or Tesla's putting on it is in the $20,000, $30,000 range that you can buy your own, have it in your home, do things for you. Now imagine how that affects real estate investors, multifamily investors. You think about maintenance on your landscaping, maintenance on your property, just the same way that we have Roomba vacuum cleaners that are going around our homes and vacuuming. Imagine landscaping done by robots, plumbing being done by robots, I don't know, roofing or roof maintenance and care being done by robots. I don't think this is far away in the future. It's much closer than we all will ever dream of.
Amazing. Blows my head. That's fantastic. So, Tony, I mean, you're leading the way when it comes to technology in multifamily. If people wanted to get more information about Linfinity and some of the cutting edge stuff that you do, what's the best way for them to reach out to see you?
Yeah, the best way to contact us is you can reach me at tony@linkmultifamily.com. We're starting to put down AI in real estate white paper with these examples of what are the many ways that you can start incorporating AI into your everyday underwriting and operations. So if you're interested in getting that white paper, please come to this website, bit.ly/Linfinity-AI. Email us and sign up there and then we can email you. But I would really love to foster a community where we share these prompts or these things that can help everybody become more efficient and be able to provide more service to our tenants as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Eddie, in the high-tech world of Silicon Valley, for giving us more of an insight about really what's going on today and what's going on in the future. And of course, our friends over at Linfinity, led by Tony Lin in the Bay Area too. Tony gave you his contact information. Make sure you get on his list to get his white paper and become part of the community sharing this infancy of technology called AI. Again, gentlemen, thank you very much for sharing that information with us. I'm Paul Peebles. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Old Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please join us at oldcapitalpodcast.com to sign up for our weekly email updates. We'll see you next week for another great interview.